Imagine this, you are a war hero, loyal to your king, admired by your country. Then one night, three mysterious women whisper in your ear, "You will be king." Do you ignore them or do you kill to make it happen? This single choice is what turns Macbeth from a celebrated soldier into one of Shakespeare's darkest villains. In this video, you're going to get the whole story of Macbeth in a way that's easy to follow. You will understand the plot, get a clear summary, meet the key characters, and go through the kind of important questions students often face. And in the end, we'll even tackle whether you should read it or stay away from it. So let's dive in. Macbeth is one of William Shakespeare's most famous tragedies, written around 1606 during the reign of King James I of England, who was also James VI of Scotland. The play is set in medieval Scotland, a country torn by war, ambition, and shifting loyalties. Shakespeare drew his story loosely from Holinshed's Chronicles, a history book of the time, though he shaped the characters and events to explore deeper themes of ambition, power, and fate. Shakespeare likely wrote Macbeth with King James in mind. James had a strong interest in witchcraft and even published a book on the subject, which explains why the witches play such a central role in the drama. James also traced his ancestry to Banquo, so Shakespeare's portrayal of Banquo as noble and virtuous would have pleased the king. Summary of Macbeth. When you first start reading Macbeth, you are not greeted by noble kings or gallant knights. You are met with thunder, lightning, and three strange figures on a blasted heath, the witches. They are not mere side characters. They are the voice of fate, of temptation, of the chaos beneath the skin of the world. They speak in riddles, in half-meanings, and the stage smells of smoke and sulfur. Their chant, "Fair is foul and foul is fair," is the key to everything that follows. The rise of Macbeth. Macbeth begins as a warrior, a loyal soldier. He has fought bravely for King Duncan of Scotland, cutting down traitors and rebels with his sword. His reputation is fierce and he carries the respect of his peers. Yet, this is exactly why the witches choose him. They greet him with three titles: Thane of Glamis, which he already has; Thane of Cawdor, a title he does not yet know he has been given; and King hereafter. Thane was a title given by the King of Scotland to noblemen who fought for him. Lots of land came with the title. The trick works. The first two prophecies prove true almost instantly. The third sticks like a thorn in Macbeth's mind. Herein lies Shakespeare's genius. The witches never force Macbeth to act. They never hand him his crown. They only whisper possibilities, and it is Macbeth's imagination that fills the silence with blood. Banquo, his friend, also hears prophecies that his descendants will be kings, though he himself will never rule. Banquo is wary, but Macbeth is already trembling with dark excitement. You can feel the tension between them, one man tempted, the other cautious. Lady Macbeth. When Macbeth writes to his wife about the witch's words, the play changes its heartbeat. Lady Macbeth reads the letter and knows her husband too well. She fears he is too full of the milk of human kindness to seize the crown. Her language is brutal, almost shocking. She calls on spirits to unsex her, to fill her with cruelty, to harden her against pity. Lady Macbeth is not simply ambitious. She is a character who refuses the ordinary boundaries of her sex, of her station, of morality. She sees the chance of power and will not let it pass. When King Duncan announces he will visit their castle, she sees the opportunity. She urges Macbeth to murder the king in his sleep. Here lies one of the most famous Shakespearean struggles. Macbeth argues with himself. He lists every reason not to kill Duncan. The king is his guest, his kinsman, a good ruler beloved by all. Macbeth admits he has no spur to prick the sides of his intent, except vaulting ambition. And ambition, he knows, can overleap itself and fall on the other side. Macbeth debates with himself. He lists reasons against killing Duncan: loyalty, kinship, hospitality, Duncan's goodness. Then he asks himself, what is pushing me to do this at all? His answer, nothing but ambition. Spur here is used metaphorically. A spur is a sharp piece on a rider's boot used to prod a horse forward. Macbeth says he has no spur, no real reason to push himself to murder Duncan. All he has is vaulting ambition, like a rider who tries to leap onto a horse but jumps too far and lands on the ground on the other side. But Lady Macbeth mocks him, questions his manhood, and shames him into action. Her persuasion is cooler than steel, and Macbeth gives in. The murder. The night of Duncan's murder is written like a nightmare. Everything seems off, the air is thick. Macbeth hallucinates a dagger before him, pointing the way to Duncan's chamber. He cannot tell if it is real or a dagger of the mind. When he stabs Duncan, the death comes quick, but the consequences fall heavy. Macbeth emerges shaken, his hands dripping with blood. He hears voices saying he has murdered while someone slept. He is already unraveling. Lady Macbeth, steadier, smears blood on the guards to frame them. But when morning comes and Duncan's body is found, the horror spreads like fire. Duncan's sons, Malcolm and Donalbain, flee in fear. Suspicion falls on them, clearing the way for Macbeth to be crowned king. The prophecy has come true, but at what cost? The descent. To be king is not enough. Macbeth remembers the witch's words to Banquo, that his descendants will rule. If that is true, then Macbeth has killed Duncan only to hand the crown to another man's children. His paranoia sharpens. He arranges for Banquo and Banquo's young son Fleance to be murdered. Banquo is struck down, but Fleance escapes into the night. The prophecy survives. At a banquet soon after, Macbeth sees Banquo's ghost sitting at the table. No one else sees it. He raves, shakes, speaks to the empty chair, while Lady Macbeth desperately tries to control the guests. His public mask is cracking. The witches, when consulted again, give him new visions. Beware of Macduff. No man born of woman can harm him, and he will be safe until Burnham Wood comes to Dunsinane Hill. Macduff is the Thane of Fife, another Scottish noble. From the beginning, he is shown as loyal to King Duncan and suspicious of Macbeth. After Duncan's murder, he is one of the first to doubt Macbeth's story. These riddles soothe and unsettle him at once. He clings to them as promises of invincibility. Yet fear of Macduff leads him to massacre Macduff's family in cold blood. The play at this point grows darker, bloodier, more fevered. Macbeth has moved from reluctant murderer to tyrant, from hesitation to savage certainty. Lady Macbeth's unraveling. While Macbeth hardens, Lady Macbeth breaks. The murder that once seemed to her a simple act of will becomes an inescapable stain. In one of Shakespeare's most haunting scenes, she sleepwalks, rubbing her hands as though washing invisible blood. Out, damned spot, she cries. She cannot cleanse herself of what she has done. Her strength dissolves into madness. The cruelty she once called upon devours her instead. The fall of Macbeth. Meanwhile, Malcolm, Duncan's son, gathers forces in England with Macduff at his side. When Macduff learns of the slaughter of his family, his grief turns to righteous fury. He vows revenge. The army marches toward Macbeth's castle. Soldiers cut branches from Burnham Wood to use as camouflage. From a distance, it looks as if the forest itself is moving. The prophecy is fulfilled, that he will be safe until Burnham Wood comes to Dunsinane Hill. Inside the castle, Macbeth clings to the witch's second promise, that no man born of woman can harm him. He believes himself untouchable. Yet, when he meets Macduff in battle, the truth is revealed. Macduff was delivered by caesarean section, from his mother's womb untimely ripped, not born in the usual sense. Macbeth realizes the witches have tricked him with half-truths. He fights anyway, fierce to the last, but Macduff kills him. Malcolm becomes king, restoring order, but the stage is stained. The audience is left with questions about fate, ambition, and the darkness within the human heart. You must wonder what happened to the witch's prophecy that Banquo's descendants would inherit the throne. After all, that's why Macbeth slaughters his family. Although Banquo's son Fleance escapes, he never returns to the play. Experts say that the reference to Banquo's descendants lies outside of the play. When Shakespeare wrote Macbeth, around 1606, King James I of England, also James VI of Scotland, was on the throne. James traced his ancestry back to Banquo through the royal line of the Stuarts. So when the witches say Banquo's descendants will be kings, Shakespeare is flattering his new monarch. For the original audience, this was not just prophecy, it was history. They believed the Stuart line proved the witches were right. Analysis of how Shakespeare turns Macbeth into a villain. This is one of the most fascinating aspects of Macbeth, how Shakespeare turns a brave war hero into one of literature's most chilling villains. He does it step by step, almost like peeling away layers of humanity until only ambition and cruelty remain. When the play opens, Macbeth is not a villain. He is a valiant soldier, praised for his courage in battle. The captain calls him Brave Macbeth, who carved his way through enemies for King Duncan. Even the king rewards him with the title of Thane of Cawdor, so the audience first sees him as loyal, honorable, and admired. This makes his fall more tragic. Shakespeare starts him at a high point so that the descent feels sharper and more painful. The witches never tell Macbeth to kill Duncan. They only plant an idea by hailing him as king hereafter. The brilliance lies in how Shakespeare shows Macbeth's internal reaction. Banquo hears the same prophecy, but shrugs it off. Macbeth, however, is instantly shaken. His aside, why do I yield to that suggestion whose horrid image doth unfix my hair, and make my sated heart knock at my nibs? Shows us his imagination already racing towards murder. What does why do I yield to that suggestion whose horrid image doth unfix my hair, and make my sated heart knock at my ribs mean? Why do I yield to that suggestion? He is asking himself. Why am I already giving in to the idea of killing Duncan? Nobody has told him to murder the king, yet the thought has jumped into his mind. Whose horrid image doth unfix my hair? The mental picture of murdering Duncan is so terrible that it makes his hair stand on end, like goosebumps, and make my seated heart knock at my ribs. He is so frightened and shaken by the thought that his heart is pounding unnaturally in his chest. Shakespeare lets us see inside his head. Macbeth is still noble outwardly, but inwardly he is battling dark temptation. This inner conflict is the first step toward villainy. Lady Macbeth, the push over the edge. Left alone, Macbeth might have resisted. His soliloquy before Duncan's murder proves this. He lists every reason not to do it. He calls ambition a dangerous vaulting force. But Lady Macbeth shames him, mocks his courage, and questions his manhood. She becomes the external voice that matches his inner desire. Shakespeare uses their partnership to show how villainy often grows in collusion, not in isolation. Macbeth provides the ambition, Lady Macbeth provides the ruthlessness. Together, they commit the murder. Once he kills Duncan, Macbeth changes. At first, he is shaken, he hears voices, says he has murdered sleep, but soon paranoia takes over. He realizes he must keep killing to secure his power. He murders the guards to cover up his crime. He orders Banquo's assassination because of the prophecy about Banquo's heirs. He slaughters Macduff's wife and children in an act of pure cruelty. Each time is worse than the last. Shakespeare shows us how one act of violence creates a chain reaction, dragging Macbeth deeper into villainy. Language shift. How Shakespeare shows the descent. Pay attention to Macbeth's language. Early on, his words are full of doubt, hesitation, moral struggle. If it were done when it's done, then it were done quickly. His sentences loop, twist, question themselves. Later, his speech becomes hard, clipped, resolute. The castle of Macduff I will surprise, seize upon 5, give to the edge, or the sword his wife, his babes. No hesitation, no guilt. Just brutality. Shakespeare uses the rhythm of his speech to mirror his moral collapse. Shakespeare cleverly uses the shift to show Macbeth's moral collapse. He no longer wrestles with conscience or weighs consequences. He speaks like a soldier issuing orders for a massacre. The poetry is still there, but it has become stripped down and merciless, echoing his tyranny. The main characters of Macbeth. Macbeth. At the start, Macbeth is a brave soldier and loyal nobleman, celebrated for his victories in battle. But once the witches plant the idea that he will be king, ambition consumes him. Urged on by Lady Macbeth, he murders Duncan and takes the throne. From there, he becomes a tyrant, ordering more and more killings to secure his power. Shakespeare makes us watch his transformation from hero to villain, showing how unchecked ambition and fear can rot the soul. Lady Macbeth. She is one of Shakespeare's most powerful female characters. Upon hearing the witch's prophecy, she immediately sees the chance for greatness and pushes Macbeth to seize it. Her determination and manipulation drive the murder of Duncan. But where Macbeth hardens into cruelty, Lady Macbeth unravels under guilt. Her sleepwalking scene, where she tries to wash imaginary blood from her hands, shows her collapse into madness. She dies off stage, consumed by the very ambition she once embraced. Banquo. Banquo is Macbeth's friend and fellow soldier, present when the witches first deliver their prophecy. Unlike Macbeth, Banquo does not act on their words. Instead, he is cautious, even suspicious of their motives. His prophecy is that his descendants will be kings, though he himself will not be. This makes him a threat to Macbeth's eyes. Macbeth has him murdered, but Banquo's ghost returns to haunt him, a reminder of guilt and the prophecy that refuses to die. King Duncan. Duncan is the king of Scotland at the start of the play. He is kind, trusting, and generous, almost to a fault. His decision to reward Macbeth with the title of Thane of Cawdor sets the plot in motion. But Duncan's greatest weakness is his inability to see betrayal coming. His murder while a guest at Macbeth's castle is the central crime of the play, and it turns natural order upside down in Scotland. Macduff. Macduff is the Thane of Fife, a nobleman who remains loyal to Duncan and later to Malcolm. He suspects Macbeth early on, refusing to attend his coronation banquet. His turning point comes when Macbeth orders the slaughter of his wife and children, which fuels his quest for revenge. In the final battle, Macduff kills Macbeth, fulfilling the witch's prophecy because he was delivered by caesarean section and thus not of woman born. He restores balance to Scotland. Malcolm. Malcolm is Duncan's eldest son and rightful heir to the throne. After Duncan's murder, he flees to England for safety, which makes him look guilty for a time. Later, he raises an army with English support and returns to fight Macbeth. Though young and cautious, Malcolm proves himself capable of leadership. When Macbeth falls, Malcolm becomes king, symbolizing the return of order and justice to Scotland. The Three Witches. The witches are mysterious, supernatural figures who open the play with storm and prophecy. They never tell Macbeth directly to commit murder. Instead, they dangle visions of kingship that awaken his ambition. Their words are deliberately ambiguous, offering half truths that twist into traps. They represent fate, temptation, and the dark forces of chaos. Every time they appear, the atmosphere thickens with menace, reminding us that human ambition is never far from destruction. Important questions about Macbeth. Why does Macbeth kill King Duncan even though he knows it is wrong? Macbeth kills Duncan because his ambition overpowers his conscience. The witches plant the idea by calling him king hereafter, and Lady Macbeth pressures him by questioning his courage. Macbeth himself admits he has no spur except vaulting ambition. He knows Duncan is a good king, and killing him is unnatural, but the lure of power blinds him. Shakespeare shows how temptation and manipulation can push a person past the limits of morality. How does Lady Macbeth influence Macbeth's actions? Lady Macbeth is the driving force behind Duncan's murder. When Macbeth hesitates, she mocks him, calls him a coward, and questions his manhood. Her persuasion gives him the final push to kill Duncan. However, while she appears strong at first, she later collapses into guilt, sleepwalking and imagining blood on her hands. Shakespeare uses her to show how ambition can corrupt but also how guilt can destroy. What role do witches play in the play? The witches represent fate, temptation, and chaos. They never tell Macbeth exactly what to do. Instead, they speak in riddles and half-truths that spark his ambition. By hailing him as king, they awaken desires already inside him. Later, their new prophecies trick him into feeling invincible. The witches show how external forces can influence people, but Shakespeare makes clear that the real responsibility lies with Macbeth's own choices. How does Macbeth change from the beginning to the end of the play? At the start, Macbeth is a loyal warrior, praised for his bravery. After hearing the prophecy, he becomes torn between duty and ambition. Once he murders Duncan, he changes into a tyrant, ordering killings without hesitation. By the end, he is numb, hardened, and almost indifferent to life, saying it is a tale told by an idiot. Shakespeare shows a full transformation from hero to villain, making his fall tragic and terrifying. Why is Banquo important in the story? Banquo serves as a contrast to Macbeth. He hears the witch's prophecy too, but chooses not to act on it. This shows how ambition can be resisted. Macbeth sees Banquo and his descendants as a threat, since the witches predict that Banquo's line will be kings. Banquo's ghost later haunts Macbeth, symbolizing guilt and the prophecy that still hangs over him. Through Banquo, Shakespeare shows that the witches do not control fate, it is human action that decides it. What does sleep symbolize in Macbeth? Sleep symbolizes innocence, peace, and natural order. When Macbeth kills Duncan, he says he has murdered sleep. It means he has destroyed Duncan's rest, but also his own ability to sleep peacefully. Lady Macbeth too is plagued by sleeplessness, walking in her sleep and imagining blood on her hands. Shakespeare uses sleep to show how guilt and crime rob people of their inner peace and connection to the natural world. How does Shakespeare use imagery of blood and darkness in the play? Blood and darkness are recurring images that reflect guilt, violence, and moral corruption. Macbeth says his hands are sorry sight after Duncan's murder, and Lady Macbeth later hallucinates blood that cannot be washed away. Darkness covers the play's most important crimes. Duncan's murder happens at night, and the natural world grows dark after his death. These images remind the audience that murder stains not just hands but the soul, and that ambition brings people into moral darkness. Why you would want to read Macbeth? You would want to read Macbeth because it is more than a play. It is an X-ray of the human mind under pressure. It shows how ambition can tempt, how guilt can haunt, and how power can corrupt even the bravest of men. The witches, the murder of Duncan, Lady Macbeth's madness, these are not just old stories, they are scenes that make you think about your own choices. The play is short, fast-paced, and filled with lines that still cut deep today. If you want to see how Shakespeare can turn a simple what if into a spiral of murder, fear, and downfall, Macbeth is the play you pick up. Why you wouldn't want to read Macbeth? You wouldn't want to read Macbeth if you are looking for comfort, lightness, or happy endings. The play is dark from the first scene to the last, filled with witches, murder, blood, madness, and betrayal. Every character you might admire is either killed or broken by guilt. Even love between Macbeth and Lady Macbeth turns poisonous. The language, while brilliant, can also feel heavy and unsettling, with images of death and decay everywhere. If you want hope, joy, or heroes who stay noble, Macbeth will not give you that. I hope you have liked the summary and analysis of Macbeth by Shakespeare. If yes, please like this video and subscribe to my channel so that you get notified when I upload the next video.